Welcome to the first read Ultimate Spider-Man issues 1 through 160. We're breaking down Bendis's iconic run in Earth 1610, issues 1 through 160. So I'm here with Zach. And how's your day been going? Do we want to start that over? How'd I do?
You were great. No notes.
So how's your day going?
My day's going pretty good. How about you?
It's going great. Just had a good day at school. The kids had
So,
a social studies test. I think they did really well on it.
I'm glad to hear that. How was your weekend away from cold, dreary Indiana?
Thank you for asking. I went to Disney World this past weekend. My wife had a business conference in Orlando, so I got to go with her and play some golf. And we went to Disney on Sunday, and I happened to pick up this little beauty for the podcast.
Oh, what you got there? Oh my God, that is beautiful. Is that listener? He is holding up a Spider-Man Christmas tree mug. I don't know how else to describe it. It's the shape of a Christmas tree. It's green. It's got multiple Spider-Man hanging ornaments. That's beautiful.
And you, Zach, is a huge Spider-Man fan, so I was actually wondering, can you tell me the different Spider-Man that are on this?
Yeah, you might not know it, but the co-host of a Spider-Man podcast like Spider-Man, well, you're holding up Miles Morales right there.
Okay, I think we got one here.
That'd be Spider-Gwen.
Yeah, that's easy. And here's the one that I figure is going to be tough because I would have no idea, what version it is.
Yeah, so people would probably get this wrong. They'd probably say that that's Peter Parker, but that would actually be Peter Parker wearing a scarf.
Wow, I would have got that wrong.
Yeah. I mean, common mistake. No shame on you.
Yep, so I picked that up. I saw it, and I told Elizabeth, that's my wife's name. I said, "Oh, I have to get this and pull it up next time Zach and I record."
Yeah, that's pretty great.
We're away from the Ultimate Team Ups for a week, and we're back on Solo Spider-Man, starting issue 6. And Zach, I
Yes.
think you're going to do issue 6 for
Oh
us. Give us a breakdown.
my God, that was such a good segue. I really wish I could, but first, a word from our sponsor. Unfortunately, Spider-Man isn't always available to help when you encounter bad guys. If you've been the victim of a scam or bad business practices, can't talk today. Call the Better Business Bureau. The Better Business Bureau provides the public with information on businesses and charities. Their A+ through F grading scale lets you know what kind of problems and experiences consumers have had with organizations in the past. For more information, visit bbb.org today. And thank you for sponsoring the pod.
Great catch. We almost forgot that.
Dude,
And these microphones don't pay for themselves.
I know. We almost whiffed so hard on our biggest investor, our only investor.
Yeah.
But anyways, thank you for the nice, beautiful lead up before that. So yeah, talking about issues 6 through 7. Just to recap where we
6
were.
through 8.
Excuse me, 6 through 8. Just to recap where we were before this. If you remember in episode 1, Peter Parker got bit by a spider, not a radioactive spider, but a spider that had been genetically tampered with. And he discovered he had powers imbued to him through that spider. His Uncle Ben died as the result of a home invasion. He tracked down the killer, realized that he had had the opportunity to stop him earlier, and that he had the responsibility to protect people. So he decided to start superheroing. I cannot talk today.
So, Zach, and maybe this will tease because this might come up in these episodes, but what happened to Uncle Ben's killer? Peter Parker or Spider-Man tracked him down. And then did he get him arrested? What ended up happening?
Yeah, he roped him up and threw him down to the cops. They were in a warehouse.
Okay. Okay.
Does that come up?
Kind of. They talk about like Kingpin, and they get into his. He like starts doing some research on the guy and the crime
Right.
in New
Okay.
York. So it kind of does.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Tell Shiloh I said hi.
I will.
I
Tell
saw her
Elizabeth.
poke her head out. Oh, I
Oh,
will.
I didn't even know she was there.
Oh,
Honey, John
well,
says
actually,
hi.
maybe it might have been someone else because doesn't someone else live with you guys?
Yeah, her sister.
Okay, maybe it was. I don't know. I saw someone walk across.
I'll tell them both.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Yeah. All right. So when we pick up in our story with issue 6, which was written by Brian Michael Bendis and Bill Jemas, penciled by Mark Bagley, inked by Art Taber, colored by JC, and lettered by Albert Deshane, we open on J. Jonah Jameson reading the headlines of his competitors' papers in front of the Daily Bugle writers. All of the competitors' papers are writing about Spider-Man, and he holds them up to the Bugle's front page, and we see that their headline was about Norman Osborn's house burning down, which happened at the end of issue 5. And Jameson believes that his paper has gotten stale and that focusing more on Spider-Man will help boost sales. And he says, I bet right this second he's up to something that will be our headline tomorrow. And then we would flip the page if we weren't reading on Marvel Unlimited. And you see a reveal of Peter Parker dancing in his basement in his underwear and a t-shirt. And he's saying, I did it. I did it. And he's celebrating because he finally solved his father's web formula for like a strong adhesive webbing.
So what do you think of that right away? Like the fact that his dad was working on this thing that would be almost perfect for a Spider-Man, and then he happens to become Spider-Man.
Yeah, it's pretty
It's
superfluous.
superfluous. I was thinking it seemed convenient, but
Was that the
does
wrong
Peter?
word there?
I don't know. I don't know enough about the English language to know if superfluous was a good word choice.
Well, either way, you're right. It was a little convenient.
And but is his dad important in most versions of the story? It seems like, nowadays I don't think Peter's parents were important in the MCU.
Yeah, I lost you. It says John's device is not capable to record.
Oh no, am I back?
You're back.
Okay.
I don't know what that was.
I'm not sure what that was either. That'll
Yeah.
just be a fun little adventure for the listeners. Just leave it in.
Make it raw, baby.
So are Peter's parents important in this story? Did Bendis create them as a backstory kind of, or is he just a normal kid?
I won't say he created the concept of Peter's parents being interesting, but I think he definitely expanded it in this run and did more with it than normally what you would see.
Okay. Well, then it makes a little more sense that he was working on something, different and experimental kind of.
Yeah. But to basically to your point of isn't that a little serendipitous? That's the word I meant to say instead of superfluous.
That's a good one.
Yeah. But yeah, to your point about it being serendipitous that Peter's dad was working on something that's going to be perfect for him for his superheroing career. I think it goes back to when you're making a Spider-Man story, you can choose between giving him organic webbing, like what Tobey Maguire has, where it just comes right out of the wrist, or you can have him have to have some kind of like web shooter. And I think generally they make him have like a web shooter so that I think you can have some stories where it's like, oh no, it broke. And so his back's more against the wall. And if you're going to
Yeah,
have him do that, I think it makes more sense that instead of him being some genius who also got bit by a spider, I think it makes sense that he kind of piggybacked off of someone else who had figured a lot of it out.
I like it. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. So, anyways, uh, he starts testing the webbing and he notices that it's,
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm going to interrupt you.
yeah,
So when we are talking with J. Jonah Jameson, he puts Uric or Uric. Is that a famous person? I feel like you know what that name is from. Or is that name supposed to be from something?
he's from this. He's just another like B or C character in Peter Parker's world.
Okay. So is he kind of always in the Daily Bugle?
Yeah, he's like their top writer.
Okay.
He's like the Woodward and Bernstein of the Marvel universe.
Okay. Did you mention what story he was working on that Jameson took him off of?
The Kingpin.
Yeah, the Kingpin Murdoch story.
Yeah.
Just a little more world building.
I wonder if that'll come into this at any point
It
very
made
soon.
me excited. I was like, I want to start reading about Daredevil.
Oh, that might happen in this run too.
Ooh.
Yeah, you're in store for a lot of good stuff. So yeah, Peter starts testing out his webbing and he realizes that it's very strong and a little elastic and the end is totally adhesive, but the sides are just tacky enough to hold on to. So if you're ever like me and you just spend a long amount of time wondering like what Spider-Man's webs have to feel like and be made of to do the things they do, I feel like that's a pretty good explanation that helps, explain away some of the stuff that happens. The next day in school, Peter is so tired from working late on the webbing, he falls asleep in class. And when the teacher tries to wake him up, he breaks another desk like he did in episode 1. So that's like a funny little callback.
And that's also a really funny scene, I think, where if it were like a movie or a TV show or even a book we were reading, it would hit harder because it's Peter working on his webs, and then Aunt May is yelling at him through the door, "You need to go to bed or you're going to be tired at school." And Peter says, "I'll be fine." And the immediate next panel, which I'm guessing would be turning the page, is Peter snoring in class. So it's just kind of funny. It smash cuts to that.
Yeah, it's very cinematic. It plays
Yeah.
like it would in like a teen comedy.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So the teacher is frustrated. She's like, "That's the second desk you've broke this week." So we know it's still only been like a week since he got bit, and Uncle Ben died. She threatens him by saying if it happens again, she'll tell his basketball coach. And Peter says there's no need. He quit the team that morning. And later in the hallway, MJ goes up to him and says she supports him quitting the team because it wasn't him. But Kong interrupts them and he's upset with Peter for quitting. Peter explains that he has a lot going on since his uncle died, and Kong kind of responds like a teenage bully
A
jerk
jerk.
would. He says, "Your uncle croaked, so now you can't play ball."
Yeah,
And
he's got a point.
Kong does.
Just kidding. No, it's awful.
Yeah, he's when they talk about like multiple intelligences and like, oh, how emotionally intelligent are you? Kong's like 0.
Yeah.
Uh, as the two of them argue, Harry Osborn walks in and everyone's attention shifts to him. And the group tries to ask him how he's doing and tell him that they're sorry about his parents dying. And he just looks traumatized. He's like virtually emotionless and responds to their sympathy with like mild apathy. And just then, an explosion happens at the far end of the hallway that rattles everyone.
And right before the explosion, we get our very first scene of Spidey sense because Peter can tell something's going on right before it happens. He's like, "Wait, do you guys feel that or something?" And then the next frame there's the explosion.
Good catch, John. I didn't even have that in my notes. I don't think it registered when I reread it. But as they're trying to process the first explosion, another one happens even closer. And suddenly there's smoke and flames everywhere. And Kong grabs Harry under one arm and guides MJ with the other as the three of them and Flash Thompson run out and make it outside the school. And Harry is in a panic and he just keeps repeating, "He's come for me. He's come for me. Somebody help me. He's here." And we don't know who he's talking about. But just then, Peter jumps by in his finally finished Spidey suit, saying, "Heads up, big time superhero coming through." This is the first time we've seen him in the suit, when it's been completed at least. It's explained through a flashback that Peter almost changed into a Spidey suit in the school, but then he realized that that might blow his cover and make it suspicious that Spider-Man was already there. So he jumped out a window and changed outside so he could be publicly seen entering the school, which makes sense, but
I like it.
it still seemed a little goofy to me to dedicate like 2 pages to that.
That 100%, and I thought the exact same thing. I was like, this is kind of funny that he's like taking the time to worry about this, but also I don't think anyone was going to notice. But at
Right.
least he's thinking about it.
Yeah, if people in his world took that much effort to think about who Spider-Man is, they would have already figured him out.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the nerdy kid that
Well,
couldn't
that's
stand up for himself a week ago and now is dunking.
Yeah, that's true. And they said, and we saw him get bit by a spider, right? Didn't they see it? Because that's why he goes out and changes. He's like, well, if they see me in the school, they already know I got bit by a spider. They're probably going to put 2 and 2 together. So at least he's trying.
Yeah, at least he's trying. The Peter Parker story. Once inside the school again, Peter comes face to face with a large, muscular, and mysterious figure with horns and a purple cloak.
It is enormous. It is hulking over him.
Yeah,
But not like the Hulk. It's not the
but
Hulk.
I mean, if he was colored green all the way, which he later will be,
Oh yeah.
you could mistake him for the Hulk
Oh,
with
he is
like whole
hulking.
horns.
Yeah, I think Kong says that in the next
Yeah.
one. He talks about how it looked like the Hulk.
Yeah. And Peter starts doing what will become a trademark of his. He starts rattling off silly quips, talking about like, "Oh, are you the new home ec teacher?" as he starts fighting this thing. And his inner monologue kind of guides the rest of the issue. It tells us that he's telling jokes while fighting because it distracts him from all the fear that he feels in that moment. And we see that in addition to its exceptional size and strength, the Monster Man can create and throw fireballs. And so that's where the explosions had come from. And they fight back and forth until Peter decides he needs to lead the thing out of the building and away from people. So he tries to like leap out of a window, but the creature catches him and launches both of them really through a brick wall. And it then starts leaping like hundreds of feet in the air, squeezing Peter and taunting him by saying, "Parker." And that's the end of the issue.
So do you think it was jumping or was it flying?
My take is that it looks like he's jumping really, really high. Like, you know, how
Okay.
the Hulk can jump like, you know, a mile or something, but he's not flying.
Yep. Okay. I just wasn't sure. Yeah, it did kind of look like he was just jumping up in the air extremely far.
Yeah, I just say that because with like the foresight of where the series is going, you never see him fly at any later point.
Okay. Okay. So what did you think of this one? Well summarized.
Yeah. I don't know what grading scale you want to use today.
So for the issues today, because
Number of
I'm
broken
not,
desks.
that's a good one. That would have been a good one. I'm not sure that we took enough time. When I say how big, which I have in my notes, Green Goblin is what I've been calling him the whole time. So is nothing like a Green Goblin I've ever seen, in that he is just enormously over towering over Spider-Man, and he's also ripped out of his mind. So for these issues, I said we could judge it out of 8 abdominal muscles.
Okay, that is good. I like that.
So this one, I thought it was pretty good. I liked the beginning with J. Jonah Jameson. I love a good scene with J. Jonah Jameson in the Daily Bugle. Um, I like Peter creating his own webbing, and he went into a lot of detail with it, like you talked about. They're real things that, like, if you were creating a webbing, they're like real things that you would think to yourself about. And then the fight with the Green Goblin was fun. So I gave it 7 out of 8 abdominal muscles.
Okay, yeah.
Green abdominal muscles, or Green Goblin abdominal muscles.
I can dig it. It's no one else's, just his.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm similar, all the things that you say are right with it, I also think are right with it. I really spend way too much time thinking about, like, Spider-Man's webbings, like, how elastic are they? Like, could he really swing from most of the buildings in New York? Because they're not all skyscrapers. So that was like a weight off my shoulders to see it kind of explained.
And he talks about, how long is this stuff going to last? Maybe an hour or a minute, maybe forever. Like, he has no idea, which makes sense. He would have no idea. This is all trial and error. And he even says that. He's like, well, this will be great for a superhero nerd like me to try out or test out or something.
Yeah, it's cool to see him figuring stuff out, and we're going to continue with that theme in this episode and, this whole series, really. I will say the whole dedicating a lot of time in the middle of an action sequence to explain him jumping through a bathroom window and
that was goofy.
Crawling down a dumpster.
That was supposed to be I think that was more supposed to be like for comedic relief than to actually explain his thinking.
I think it was too, and I think it's logical, but it doesn't fit the mood of the story. It goes from like high tension to that back to high tension with no real buffer. So I'm going to say 6 abdominal muscles.
Okay. No, he's still got a good 6-pack in that issue.
Oh yeah, better than me.
Okay.
By 6.
All right, so issue 7. This is story by Bill Jemas, and Zach, if I mispronounce anyone's name, jump in and let me know. So
it's Jemas, but I don't think he'll mind.
Story by, is he passed away?
Oh no, we just don't know.
Good.
He's never gonna listen to our pod.
Okay, we'll get him on.
Yeah, the Marvel president, Bill Jemas.
Story by Bill Jemas and Brian Michael Bendis. Script by Brian Michael Bendis. Penciled by Mark Bagley and Art
Tiber. Yeah.
Tiber.
That one gives me trouble too, but I just heard them say it on an episode of Jay and Miles Explain the X-Men, so I'm going to go with Tiber.
Okay. So if I call this creature the Green Goblin, is that going to make sense, or should I not call him that when I'm doing when I'm recapping?
You can call him that. The only reason I wasn't is because it hasn't been said yet in the story.
Okay.
So
I guess that's just my vast Spider-Man knowledge of knowing that Norman Osborn is generally the Green Goblin.
Yeah, you're too smart. I mean, most people who are familiar with Spider-Man and are listening to this pod already knew it, so we can just, take that mystery away.
Yeah. He's a big green guy with a goblin face.
Who'd have thought?
Okay, so the Green Goblin is flying Spider-Man or jumping really high through the sky, and he kind of winds up and throws him towards the ground. Spider-Man, panicking because he's flying through the air towards the ground, seconds away from death. He panics, he sprays his new webbing at the ground, and he kind of webs up a little hammock that ends up catching him. And he can't believe himself. And then he is also thinking to himself as he's kind of recovering from this, did that thing just say my name? Because how would that know who I am? Because he still hasn't really talked about it, but as Zach told us in the last issue, he's kind of taunting him, saying Parker.
Oh, come on, you can do a better Goblin voice than that.
Parker. Was that a good one?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
8 abdominal muscles there.
Great. So the Green Goblin is heading back towards the school, presumably for Harry, when Spider-Man shows back up to continue the fight. So Peter is trying to web up the Green Goblin, and he accidentally hits the NYPD helicopters that are there to help out. And
because where are they right now? The fight's kind of progressed somewhere. You see where they're at?
Are they not just right outside the school anymore? Oh, well, I know it ends on like a bridge or something like that. Is
yeah,
that
it
where
looks
it's
like
progressed?
it looks like they're close to the bridge at this point. It looks like they are within stone's throw away from the Brooklyn Bridge.
Okay. So Peter has lured the fight somewhere else.
Yeah. And did you notice the twin towers in the background?
Oh no, I didn't.
Yeah,
Oh, there. Yeah,
I keep looking at that in all these issues.
that's
That's
so interesting. And this
it's
must have been in what, 2001 or 2000, right?
within 12 months of that.
Wow, that's
Yeah, it's
interesting.
a weird time capsule thing because
Yeah,
the
that
art
is.
doesn't look too dated yet. It looks like
No.
it should be more recent, but it's not.
Oh, wow, great catch, Zach.
You're gonna be
Things,
looking for
thing,
it in all
things.
these issues now.
I am. So Spider-Man and the Green Goblin are now fighting away from the school, and Spider-Man tries to web up, this creature, and he accidentally gets the NYPD's helicopters. And I kept thinking that they were going to explain why his webbing was green. But is that just what it looked like in the animation? Because it seemed to me that his webbing is green.
Yeah, I see that too. I think it was maybe supposed to be more gray because if it's clear, then it being on the windshield doesn't really affect them. So I think they were trying to
Okay.
go for a grayer webbing, but maybe the colorist had some different ideas.
Okay. Like I said, I kept thinking that they were going to make a comment about it, or maybe like something to do with the Green Goblin, but they never did. So maybe
It
that's
kind
just
of
what
looks
his webbing looks like.
like swamp goop.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the helicopter even says, it looks like something gross or puke or something.
Yeah.
So Peter gets flung away from the fight, and the helicopter is about to confront this creature, and Peter's still first and foremost kind of just trying to get the situation under control rather than fight. He's like, these guys don't know what they're up against. Well, I don't know what I'm up against either, so I don't know what I just got to try to get this under control so no one gets hurt. So he's swinging around, he's quipping all over the place. The police start to shoot at the creature, and they hit him a bunch of times. Doesn't really seem to do much to me, from my perspective. It looked like he was taking all of the bullets, pretty easily. And he's still just menacingly saying, Parker. And Peter doesn't understand how this thing knows who he is. So the creature lunges towards Peter. He makes a good dodge out of the way, and it causes the Green Goblin, presumably Norman Osborn, to go flying off the bridge down into the water below. And you kind of see his hand come up, and then it goes back down into the water. So potentially he's been defeated or he's dead, but we as comic book fans know better than that. So Peter's now talking to the NYPD helicopter, and he's saying, we need to go and look for this guy. We can still save him. Good guy Peter Parker still wants to try and help whatever person or creature this is. But the NYPD kind of has different plans. they want to arrest Spider-Man, and they're saying if you move, we're going to shoot you. And then I would say without him moving, they just kind of start opening fire. And luckily, Spider-Man dodges around, and then we kind of cut to he shows back up as Peter Parker back outside the school.
Yeah, so I think you're right that they were gonna shoot him regardless because he's standing still and he's complying, and then he gets like his spider sense, and you start seeing him do
Yes.
backflips, and they just start spraying. They're like,
Yes, yeah, he does. He does really only survive because his spider sense, because they do start shooting at him before he does anything.
yeah, and then he just jumps off the Brooklyn Bridge and gets away.
Yeah. And we see him. He shows back up outside the school. The police say they found him hiding underneath a chalkboard. And then we kind of hear part of Peter's conversation where he's like, yeah, I got stuck underneath some stuff in the school. And they're all kind of wondering, oh my gosh, what is that? What was that? And then Harry says that it was his father. And his father, Norman Osborn, didn't actually die in that lab explosion. He turned in to whatever this creature is. He killed his mom, burned the house down, and is now trying to kill Harry. So, as Harry's kind of explaining all this, Peter is kind of doing his own internal thinking of, well, this thing knows I'm Spider-Man, so did it show up to kill me, or did it show up to kill Harry, or maybe both of us? And he doesn't really know what's going on. And then elsewhere, we see just a couple of air bubbles coming up from the bottom of the river, lake, or wherever the Green Goblin fell in. So we know he's
Whatever
alive down
body of
there.
water, whatever body of water the Brooklyn Bridge is built over.
Okay, our Zach, our resident geography major here. What body of water did he fall into?
I don't know. Wouldn't it be the
Is
East
that
River?
the Hudson? I don't know.
It's either the Hudson or the East River. It's one of the two that creates like the peninsula of Manhattan. If we have like serious listeners from Manhattan, they're going to be laughing at us because this whole series we're just going to confidently be talking and not know what we're saying.
No, I won't ever know what I'm saying about the New York landmarks. I didn't even see the Twin Towers.
Did you notice something else here in these last couple pages? I thought the like reunion of when they're like, oh, we found him under a chalkboard, and he goes out to meet his friends, and Aunt May is there too, and like the first person who reacts to him is Mary Jane. Just like it looks like she's about to lay him out. It looks like a real quality football tackle, and she's just like hugging him, and they're both like open mouth smiling. It was just so cute, like you can tell this girl is like head over heels for him and he doesn't even know it yet.
You're saying she hugs Peter
Yeah.
when he walks up?
On page 16.
Oh, yep.
And then on 18,
yeah.
you get
they're so cute.
They are. And then on 18, you get another one of those with Aunt May, and she's like crying. She's like hysterical. You can tell she thinks he's the most helpless thing. I don't know. I just thought that was like sweet.
Yeah. Well, they're in the next episode. There is a panel of Peter with Aunt May that we'll talk about it when we get to it. That I think is a very obvious callback to a panel with Mary Jane a couple issues ago. So that's funny that now you say that there's another one where they kind of are in similar poses, Mary Jane and Aunt May. And I wonder if like that's something that they purposefully did, kind of putting Peter and Aunt May and then Peter and Mary Jane in similar poses like multiple times, because they're obviously the two most important ladies in his life.
Yeah, I think there might be something to the idea that he is inherently this very powerful man, even though, people don't realize it of him yet. But his strength really comes from like these two women.
Ah, I like it.
Yeah. What do you want to give this one in terms of Green Goblin abdominal muscles?
I I liked this one a lot also. uh I didn't really think about it, but I don't think it was any better or any worse than the last one, so I'll give it 7 more abdominal muscles.
Yeah. So I gave the last one 6, and I really liked the last one. I think I'm just a harsher grader than you.
You definitely are.
I'm going to give this one a 5, not because it does anything wrong per se, but I really like the interpersonal stuff in this book. I think a good issue is, a mix of Peter and the people around him and him doing Spider-Man stuff. And I feel like this was just a real fight heavy book. Um, which is
Yeah,
good.
that's
It was a
true. That
it was a good fight heavy book, but I'm still, it was just so heavily that I got to give it 5 abdominal muscles, which again is more than what I have. So no
yeah.
shame there.
No, I actually think that I'm gonna take away an abdominal muscle because you're right. It was mostly fighting. And I remember even when I started reading this one, I thought to myself, oh, I hope that this isn't gonna be just like a fight for the entire second part. Like it was when he met the Hulk, where the first episode is build up and then the second episode they're just fighting the entire time, and I remember thinking I hope that that's not what this one is. And I guess maybe there was enough stuff that I didn't really notice that that's what it was, so it's still good, but I'm gonna go 6 out of 8.
Now that you say that, I don't know if this is the case because I've never consciously thought about it like that, but I wonder if that's a Bendis hallmark or if it's kind of going to change up because there's a lot of conflicts in this series that spills over into multiple issues. And I wonder if they'll, a lot of them will have really plot heavy ones followed by a fight one and
Yeah.
just switch off like that, or if
Hmm.
that's just these two examples.
Interesting. We'll have to keep note.
Yeah, we'll look out for that. Any bahoozle. Moving on to issue 8, our final issue of the day. This one was written solely by Brian Michael Bendis. Bill Jemas was just assisting him with the intro arc, so issues 1 through 7. This one, from here on out, it's just Bendis. It was penciled again by Mark Bagley. It was inked by Art Teber, colored by JC, and lettered by Wes Abbott. So we open on an armored truck robbery. The robber has devices that look like brass knuckles and seem to be sending shockwaves at the truck's guards. It's a little unclear what's happening.
It's very well drawn, I think, because it legitimately, even as I look at it now, makes me think that my phone is vibrating. I mean, I thought it looked really cool.
Yeah, it definitely looks cool. That is for sure. Peter swings in and punches the robber, and the robber tries to shoot him with his devices, but Peter fills them with webbing and they overload, which shocks him unconscious. I'm just going to say it right here. That really bad robber is Shocker. And those things are like, they like vibrate. It's like they vibrate the air around people.
And Peter says, "What? Who are you, the vibrator?"
Yeah. Doo doo. Yeah. So one thing I like about this series is some villains, like in the real world, some are probably going to be like par for, the course, and some are going to be really, really hard to beat, and some are just going to be like a dude who has a
Yeah.
thing. And not everyone has to be like this big climactic boss battle, and this is
Yeah.
one of the guys that he just handles like
Well,
so easily.
yeah, and I like that because he's got superhero powers. A normal guy, he should dispatch before the guy even knows he's coming. And he kind of even says that with the vibrator because he says, you know, first he kind of announces himself and he says, "Hey, who are you, the vibrator?" And then he like kind of punches him, and then he gets attacked, and then he stops him. And he's like, well, I should have taken care of him way quicker than that because he could have done some real damage. And he kind of makes the mental note, okay, next time I just need to knock them out before they even know what's going on, which I like.
Yeah, he's learning, he's growing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um so Peter tries to tell the guards to call the police, but they interrupt him to say just take it because they think he's taking over this other guy's robbery. I think that's kind of interesting is that early on everyone's assuming the worst about him.
Yeah.
Um he swings away and he just tells him again, call the cops. And later at school, Peter overhears Liz, Kong, and Flash talking about how the newspaper is offering a boatload of money to anyone who has good pictures of Spider-Man. And he hears this and he thinks to himself, I know how to get good pictures of Spider-Man. So he dons his costume and poses in front of a camera on a timer and gets pictures of himself.
So is this a new Michael Bendis created plot line where Peter takes pictures of Spider-Man for a part-time job, or is this already in the canon?
Oh no, this is like super old. This is like Stan Lee, Steve Ditko old.
Okay.
If
Okay.
anything,
That was originally how Spider-Man made money, is he took or how Peter Parker made money. He took pictures of Spider-Man working at the Daily Bugle.
yes, if anything,
Okay.
this run subverts that by making it go down a completely different path, as we'll see in this issue.
Okay.
Yeah. So he goes into Manhattan to the Daily Bugle office to try and sell the pictures. He walks up to the triad of editors J. Jonah Jameson, Robbie Robertson, and writer Ben Ulrich. We've already met them because of the team up issues that we did out of order. But in universe, this is the first time he is meeting them. And they are so entrenched in their conversation that they don't even notice him there. Jonah is talking about wanting more coverage of Spider-Man because he thinks that Spider-Man is going to be their OJ. And Robbie responds that they have nothing on Spider-Man. And Peter gets their attention by holding up the pictures he had taken.
Perfect timing. Right as they say, we don't have anything on Spider-Man, Peter Parker's there holding pictures of him.
Yeah. And they just stop and they're looking at him like, who is this kid that has exactly what we need? And Jonah tries to lowball Peter, offering him $50 for all of the pictures.
Well, before you do that, and since I stopped you, I guess I'll do the imitation. We get our very first J. Jonah Jameson. What I recognize him from the movies, which is crap, crap, crap. What'd you take these with a disposable camera? Crap, crap.
Yeah, and I think that line actually makes it into the first Spider-Man movie.
I'm pretty sure it does, exactly word for word. I'm pretty sure that is in the movie.
I hope Bendis fought for a co-screenwriter credit on that then. But that is a great classic line. Would you take these with a disposable camera? Yeah, so we've already set him up very quickly as just this cantankerous boss that, no one's ever going to be able to please.
Yeah, this is a guy that all he wants is pictures of Spider-Man, and then a kid walks up holding perfect pictures, and he just has nothing to say but insulting him.
Yeah, and still tries to lowball him. He's like Mr. Krabs. He desperately wants something, but he wants to save a buck getting it even more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So before Peter can even respond to the honestly insulting offer, the secretary behind him screams in frustration. And this is our introduction to Betty Brandt. She is frustrated because the Daily Bugle website crashed on her. And apparently this is a fairly regular occurrence. And Jonah asks her if she can just fix it because the Bugle paid for her to take a computer class. And I really liked this line.
Oh, I know what you're about to say.
This was smart of her. She's like, if it was a one-day class, if I took a one-day class in Chinese, I wouldn't know Chinese by the end of the day.
That is a phenomenal line. That's actually not what I thought you were going to say, but that is a great one.
What did you think I was going for?
So I thought that it was very tongue in cheek of Mr. Bendis that she says, I'm not a web developer. And meanwhile, Peter is right there having developed his own webs, not one issue later or one issue before. And then she also says, there's a lot of, well, you have to do this to fix the website, and it's not the website, it's the web server, and this web and that web. And I can't help but think that those were all put in on purpose for a little Spider-Man wink and a nod.
Oh yeah. I was gonna get there eventually, but
I thought you were, so I'm sorry I jumped the gun.
no, you're good. I'm glad we both picked up on it because it is a very clever thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So while this conversation is happening between Betty and Jonah, Peter's looking over her shoulder at the screen, and he just kind of quietly says the scripts are in a recursive loop, and everyone stops and looks at him. And this leads to him explaining what is happening to the site, and he sits at Betty's desk and just fixes the issue like it's no problem. And Jameson offers him a job on the spot, not as a photographer like you would think, but to come to the Bugle after school and be their web designer. And in my notes, I literally put LOL web. So not only is she saying web a lot and having problems with her web site, but he literally is going to be the web guy for the Daily Bugle.
Yeah, that's good. I do like that a lot.
And they don't want to hire him for his pictures, which is hilarious because literally no one on Earth can get better pictures of Spider-Man than him. I just think that's like such a modern take on this that, you hire this high school kid, but he's not going to be your photographer anymore. It's because kids are good with technology.
Yeah, that's funny. I wonder if that's a realistic thing that a computer guy could look at and fix that quickly. Like, I wonder if like a web developer reading that would be like, yeah, this all makes total sense. Because I would have no idea, he could have said anything there.
Right. It almost made me Google if a recursive loop is a real thing.
Yeah. It all sounded like it was, correct.
Yeah. I mean, I could see it going either way. Like, Bendis is a comic book writer. He's not a computer guy.
Yeah.
Unless that's a secret talent that I don't know about. Maybe he consulted with a computer guy. Maybe he made it up. Both seem plausible. So that leads to a kind of funny scene where Peter calls home to ask Aunt May's permission to work the job. Because remember, he's only 15. He tells them he's practically 16. They think he's 16, but he's kind of hiding it from them. And she asks to speak with Jameson. And that just leads to this hilarious page of panels where, like, you only see his side of the conversation, and he can barely get 2 words out. He's like, well, yes, ma'am, I'm sure he's a fine boy. And then you can tell she's talking over him, and he's like, yeah, uh-huh. And he does that thing where you hold the phone away from your face and you look at it like, is this person serious? And he's like, I understand. And it's hilarious because you can just tell this guy who is used to getting his way, like in the boardroom and with all these people working under him, he is just getting given the what for from a little old lady talking about how, you better not, take advantage of my nephew or whatever she was saying.
Yeah, that was a really funny scene. I like that.
Yeah. And then it ends with him getting off the phone and saying to Peter, you ever do that to me again and I'll toss you out a window.
Cut to immediately. What, Zach? Do you have
the nightmare, right?
Spider-Man will cut to immediately Spider-Man swinging outside a window. He says, if you ever do that again, I'll throw you out a window. And the very next scene is Spider-Man through a window.
Almost as if to say, and here's what would happen if you tried.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that night, Peter has a nightmare about Uncle Ben's death. and Aunt May like overhears
Well,
him.
so we don't originally know that it's a nightmare.
That's true. It's just
For
portrayed for a few pages in
yeah,
different artwork as like
it
a
looks
retelling.
so I didn't notice that right away, but I definitely did not think it was a nightmare right away. I was thinking, oh, he's just swinging around. I thought, oh, Spider-Man's just going to stop a crime like an everyday occurrence. You know, he's not dealing with the Green Goblin every day. Some days he just stops a crime that's happening, and he's kind of about to stop this person who's robbing a store, and he jumps in, and then the guy immediately turns around and shoots him, and then I'll let you take over for when Spider-Man gets shot. What happens?
It turns into Uncle Ben, and then you see Ben standing there bleeding. And when I said it had different art, it's still Mark Bagley's pencils. It still looks very close to what you've been seeing, which is why you could not even notice it. But it definitely has like a fuzzier penciler and a different colorist. So it stands out from the rest of the book. And then all of a sudden, he just wakes up and it goes back to the normal colorist and inker that you're used to. And you can see, apparently, he was like screaming or something. Aunt May rushes into his room and starts comforting him. And so this doesn't really progress the plot, but what it does is show us the consequences of things that have previously happened. I feel like one of the failings of really early Spider-Man, like the Stan Lee era Spider-Man, is Uncle Ben dies in the first few pages of Amazing Fantasy, and then is just only casually referenced in passing occasionally. Um, in this, you can tell like this is what would happen if you're a teenager and one of your caretakers died a week ago. You're still dealing with that.
And and I was thinking, oh, this is going to have to do with the run itself, because I think it kind of sets up what Peter's going to have to get over. And I don't know this obviously because I haven't read all of it. But you know, it's not just he had a nightmare about Uncle Ben dying, but the first thing he says to Aunt May is, "I couldn't stop it." So it's not just his nightmare. He has some pretty strong guilt about he should have stopped this. It should have never got to this. He should have stopped that robber before he ever got to Uncle Ben, you know? So it's not just he's feeling upset about Uncle Ben's death. He's feeling very responsible about Uncle Ben's death, also, I think.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's reinforcing the character development we've seen, setting the stage for his actions in the future to have been influenced by this, and at the same time reminding like this wasn't that long ago to him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And
uh
there's the scene where it's very similar to Mary Jane earlier after Uncle Ben dies and he just collapses into Mary Jane's arms. You know, we
yeah,
have him collapsing into Aunt May's arms in the exact same way.
yeah, again, these two women are his foundation. Um so yeah, after that we return to the Daily Bugle and we see Peter starts using the paper's database to research known criminals. They basically have like all these files of stories that they hadn't written yet but they had gathered evidence for. And he finds out that the head of organized crime in New York City is Wilson Fisk, the kingpin. And he asks Robbie why no one ever goes after Fisk, even though everyone knows he's a crime boss. And Robbie tells him that the paper tried once, but Fisk bought stock in the company to kill the story, which seems like it might be an indictment of
Just
capitalism.
100%, but also what a power Kingpin move. My only knowledge of Kingpin is from the Daredevil series that was on years ago, and I think that that is an amazing show. But that just seems like such a Kingpin thing to do. You know, you just buy the paper if they're going to say bad stuff about you.
Oh yeah. Just use your fear and money and
Yeah.
influence to y- have spies everywhere, have people on your
Yeah.
payroll, and if you can't buy them off, you like somehow influence some other way to like silence them, but you're
Yeah.
always working in the shadows. That's his MO. Yeah. Um and then Robbie says there's a school of thought that says if you brought down the kingpin, someone else would just take his place. And the issue ends with Peter looking back at the screen and saying, "Oh yeah, we'll see."
And that's Peter Parker saying, you know, no one can do anything about Kingpin. Well, now I know what I'm going to be focusing on is Kingpin, and I it made me very. I'm looking forward to reading these next ones because I'm guessing that this is where the story goes. As now we're going to get into Wilson Fisk.
Yep, that will be a large portion of our next episode.
Excellent.
Um yeah, I kind of like the just it feels like youthful like ignorance and optimism and hope. Like it's this thing that we all kind of understand like yeah, if there's a power vacuum another criminal's going to move in. But like he's this like idealistic 15-year-old who just says, "Well, maybe not. I'm going to take the chance of that anyways."
Well, and I I guess when you were saying it's like naivete or whatever you just said that means the same thing as like youthful innocence. It's innocence about that oh no, this probably won't happen, but also it's like this guy is the most powerful person you were just told. You just looked at like this huge crime story and this guy's at the top and you're like, why doesn't anyone go after this guy? And they're like, because it's impossible to. He's like too powerful. And you have this 15-year-old that's like, well, I could probably handle this.
I just beat up the Shocker. How much harder
Yeah.
can he be than the Shocker?
Yeah. Let alone that there's still this like creature that was like a Hulk-sized goblin that just happened yesterday that maybe you should see what's going on with that first. But
And let's be honest, if he wasn't getting shot from like a police chopper, he probably would have killed you.
yeah.
Yeah,
Spider-Man's probably got this one covered though.
you gotta love him. He's got spunk.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, we are now 8 issues into this series. We saw some Bendis writing on the team up books. We've seen 8 issues of Bagley's art in this series. Do you feel like you've picked up on any like traits or hallmarks of both of their styles or have anything to say about how they work together?
Okay, what was you said about Bendis's writing and then what else?
Bagley's art.
Oh, the art probably not because I don't really notice stuff like that. Like it could be drawn in a bunch of different styles, and I wouldn't really have anything to say about what the style is apart from like it looks good.
That's fair.
Um, but like I guess sometimes you can be like, oh yeah, this looks more cartoony or less cartoony or something, but I don't really even have the words to describe
Do the
that.
like do the eyes, the eye palettes like in his on his costume just feel like super big to you cuz that's
Yes,
the
they are huge.
the super big eyes and like the disproportionately small like teenagerishly small body are what I always think of
So
as like Bagley's Ultimate Spider-Man look.
yeah, I know exactly what you mean, and I like noticed that before, but I wouldn't have even probably like been able to pull it out. But I actually don't. That's not my favorite look for Spider-Man. Um, I don't think it's bad, but it just does. I think I like more of a face. This looks a bit too young and a bit too insect-like in the face.
Well, he's a teenage Spider-Man.
I know, which which makes it a perfect costume for a teenage Spider-Man. But I guess I just like a little bit more of a face. But I shouldn't even say that because I like it. I've never really noticed. Oh, I don't. It's good. But the writing, Bendis's writing, I think, is easier to pick out because I think just the way he writes in little jokes and makes little commentary on like the politics of the world. Um, I feel like he puts in little stuff here and there where I can be like, oh yeah, this guy likes to write in real world politics without like hitting it over your head, kind of.
Yeah. I feel like Bendis hitting the like big like Marvel books at the around this stage of his career and then moving forward, obviously. I feel like it was like when Quentin Tarantino started making movies because you know how like you can pick out Tarantino dialogue, like
Yeah.
they'll just be talking about nothing at all, but that's like how people talk in the real world.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
feel like Bendis does that, and a lot of people don't like him because of that. They wish that you would just look out, Spider-Man. Oh, take this. Like I don't know, like not right like real people, but
Yeah.
I
No,
feel
I
like that's the only like I love it. I feel like that's what makes,
yeah,
the book some of the times.
I agree. I think that every issue is such a quick read also. Like they never feel like they drag or anything like that.
Which is strange because he does like a decompressed storytelling. Like he took a 15-page story and turned it into 5 issues for
Yeah,
Spider-Man's
that's
origin,
true.
but those issues go fast.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I would say that they go faster than where they pack it all in like the very first episode ever where we have to spend like 3 pages on Peter being the biggest dork on the planet and like getting invited to the Rolling Stones concert or not getting invited to it or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. We can check in on this later in the pod and like in future episodes and see if there's anything else that you've picked out or have come to notice about the art or the writing or anything, but I
Yeah.
just wanted to touch on that while we're pretty early on, just see what your impressions were.
Yeah.
All right. So for this last issue, do you still want to do um 8 biceps to judge, or do we want to switch to a different metric since there was no Green Goblin?
Well, there's 8 abdominal muscles. You
What did
can't
I
have
say?
8 biceps.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm tired.
um I don't have another thing to judge it, but if you have something we can.
How about 10
Pictures of Spider-Man.
pictures of Spider-Man?
Bring me pictures of Spider-Man.
I was gonna say like newspaper headlines, but I was like, that actually sucks.
um, if we're gonna go out of 10, I'm gonna give this one a 9 out of 10 pictures of Spider-Man.
Yeah,
Because as you know, I always love a scene with J. Jonah Jameson. It's probably my favorite character in that we see. It seems like as far as lines you have that are just like spot on, he has the highest batting percentage. You know, like he's batting 100%. Where every line J. Jonah Jameson gets, I'm just like enthralled reading it.
yeah.
So I like all of those scenes. I just thought this one was really great. Like if it was out of 8 abdominal muscles, I was going to give it an 8 out of 8 because I wanted to rate it better than the first one we read. But because we upped the scale to out of 10, I will give it 9 out of 10.
That's fair. Yeah. I was about to say 8, but I really feel like I go too hard on these, and you're absolutely right. This had a lot of great J. Jonah Jameson lines. It had that great Betty Brant line.
Yeah.
I was just saying I don't like super fight heavy issues, and this was almost all interpersonal stuff that sets up the rest of the series.
Yeah.
I
And
got
I
to
do
give it
think that Nightmare with Uncle Ben is like That totally caught me off guard that it was a nightmare when that changed into Uncle Ben. Like, I did not see that coming at all. I thought like we were about to see that Spider-Man was kind of bulletproof and someone shot him and he was going to be like, "Oh, that thank God I'm bulletproof," or something like that. And then he was going to punch the guy. And then it turned into Uncle Ben and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is like having a nightmare." So, I really liked that scene. Um, but yeah,
And it
just
was
a
all
lot of good
silent.
stuff.
There was no words
Yeah,
either,
yeah.
which
Which is probably
anytime
how
you
we should
see
have known it was a nightmare because he wasn't quipping.
well, I mean, that's not something that's, like, new to this book. I mean, there have been entire issues that Marvel has published that are just completely silent, but it's something that's rare enough that it stands out when it happens. You feel like, "Oh, this was intentionally done for a reason." So,
Yeah,
I think it definitely, gave more weight to that scene.
yeah.
So but yeah, I gotta give it 9 out of 10 pictures of Spider-Man 2.
Nice. High rating on this one. This might be the favorite that we've talked about then.
I
This one or probably the one with Wolverine were my two favorites. I like the Tony Stark one too.
I don't think we were rating in episode 1, but I think the very first issue, you and I were both real high on.
Okay.
But alright, you got any closing thoughts? Anything else you wanna get off your chest?
I don't have anything. I know last episode we talked about, maybe doing a something interesting or just whatever's on the top of your head. I don't know if you have anything. I figured, I
Oh,
went to Disney and got this cool Christmas tree Spider-Man mug, so that could be our interesting thing for this week if you
yeah,
didn't have anything.
a parting thought.
Yeah.
Um, well, I mean, I'll say this for the pod, you already know, but I just got a PlayStation 4 as an early Christmas gift. I've been behind on getting a new console since 2009 when I got an Xbox 360. So, finally getting back into gaming just a little bit, and I've been playing the Spider-Man game. Um, go
That's good.
figure.
That's pretty new game that just came out, right? Spider-Man for PS4.
Yeah, newer than anything that I ever played on the PlayStation. My last Madden was 2011, so if that tells you anything.
How are you liking it?
Dude, I am loving it. I, like, actually get giddy whenever I turn the thing on. I've only had it for 2 days now. Um,
It is fun. I remember just like getting it and swinging around the city, and it is a very cool like feeling game. It
yes.
really makes you feel like you are swinging around the city.
Shyla and I commute together, and the last 2 mornings when we've been driving into work, I've just been talking her ear off on, like, what side mission I just did the other day, and she couldn't care less, but I'm just, like, so excited about it. It's funny.
That's funny.
So
Let me
excited
give
to get back
you
into video games. All right. Well, thanks for chatting, John. It was fun as always.
yeah, what's next week?
Next week we will be back in this main series looking at issues 9 through 12.